Hey everybody, this is Perch, and I got some news that was disturbing, and it's one of those. I don't know if I'm angry, I don't know if I'm depressed, I don't know what those things are. But basically, and without revealing too much, it appears that there's a bit of a reset going on for entry level rates over at one of the big two, and they are going to be, basically lowering rates for writers and presumably artists and creatives and others, but specifically this information about writers. And the rate they lowered it to, that's being reported, and again, until I get complete confirmation, I'll leave it here. It's low. It's astronomically low. It's not. It's ridiculous low. And before you come in and say, "Hey, look, the content's bad. Why should people pay more?" I guess this is all about your point of view. I think if you pay, very, very low rates, you're going to get very, very low quality. There are definitely some people out there who are believers who will come in and try to do the absolute best they can for a low rate. But at some point, when the money's low, you have to start asking yourself, um, why am I doing this job? I mean, if you look at it and you go, you do the math and you're like, okay, I can definitely make more as a barista. Definitely. Now, granted, I have to stand in one of those stupid looking aprons and I have to deal with annoying people in the coffee order all day. I can't go into Starbucks and, buy one cup of coffee, the cheapest one I can possibly find, and then sit with my old MacBook in a corner of the Starbucks for 4 hours, kind of, alternating between, surfing on Twitter and trying to write a script. Yeah, the person who's sitting in the corner with the beat up MacBook, and the little picture of like Snow White in an Antifa outfit holding the apple, vinyl sticker on the front. Damn, I should probably edit that out. I definitely was way too specific in the description of a writer. Anyway, all right, fine. Um, Regardless, that does look more glamorous. But at some point, there is a tipping point where you're like, all right, if this is a 20-page comic, and I'm being paid $1,200, uh, you know, maybe I beg and I plead and I try and get 2 to 3 books going. So now I'm bringing in $3,600 a month at 3 books. That's before tax. I don't know. Like, honestly, that's I think at some point you go, yeah, I think I'll make lattes for assholes. That's what I think I'm going to do. So anyway, like I said, I'll get full confirmation on this, but it's depressing because my belief, and I know some of you agree and some of you do not, and I'm not going to try and convince anyone for the umpteenth time about it. My belief is that if you want to really push quality, if you want to push different types of individuals, different kind of skill sets in comics, you need to pay more. I think that if you paid more, you would basically attract a different crowd of writers. Now, it's not quite that simple. If you just raised rates, you've also got to change out your editorial team. You got to across the board make a number of changes. But people have asked me from time to time, hey, Perch, if you were president of Marvel, president of DC, one of the things I would do is I would say, look, we need more money in the system. So I'm gonna pay more for editorial. I'm gonna pay more for writing. I'm gonna pay more for art. I'm gonna change the way the business model is structured. I'm definitely gonna pay more, and maybe that means I have to put out fewer books. I can't afford 80 books a month, so okay, so I'm gonna pay more and put out 50 books a month. Still absurd, but okay. But that's only half of the plan. The other half of the plan needs to be, okay, with this extra money comes higher expectations of the people that we're hiring. That means I don't want to see scripts handed in sloppy or late or screwed up. I want to see, the name value this has been one of those excuses that goes in comics. It's like, well, yeah, this person's unprofessional, but their name sells a lot of books. This statement has been made by friends of mine at Marvel about Dan Slott. Dan Slott is, he's a yeah, he turns in stuff late. Yeah, you have to, be on his ass all the time. Yeah, you have to hire a ghostwriter sometimes to come in and help. But his name sells books. I'm not sure his name does sell books. I'm not saying it's net zero, but I think there is a tier of people whose name itself sells a significant uptick of books. I think those people are. I don't think there's many of them at Marvel right now. Donny Cates probably does fit into that category. I'm in terms of writers. I mean, just in theory, you're still paying Chris Claremont. I think Chris Claremont would bring in a lot of the collectors and people who've been in for comics for a while. And I mean, by the way, by saying this isn't me throwing shade. Honestly, it's not. I just think, like, for example, if you like Al Ewing, if you put Al Ewing's name on a comic, just Al Ewing, I don't think it sells it by itself. I still think you have to have a good creative team along with him. I think you have to have a good pitch. I think it's got to be on the right project. And I say that because we've seen, Al Ewing go on to some other things when it's not as a big of a marquee product or not as big of a marquee creative team, and it doesn't do as well. Donny Cates has done indie work that hasn't done as well. Jonathan Hickman has done indie work that hasn't done as well. And that's an indication that, the name alone doesn't bring it. There's a lot of creators over on Substack right now. There is close to zero buzz about Substack. So I guess my point here is there's not a lot of names that can pull people just by themselves. I think we're seeing some of that play out with Scott Snyder over on what he's done with Amazon and other things. I think his name does bring some. But also, in fairness, I think Scott is smart enough to know that, he needs a good creative talent with him. It can't just be him. I think he does understand it is a team project. So if he's going to do this thing with Comixology, I mean, they're billing it as, Scott Tober, last year. And, they can call it a Scott Snyder kind of curated amount of titles. But he's like, oh, yeah, but Greg Capullo's coming on this one. But Francis Marspul's coming on this one. But, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The artist is somebody you also recognize. It's not being sold completely off Scott's name. I don't think there's a lot of people out there like that who fit that bill. So I get back to, if this is true, then what the strategy that, this publisher is taking is basically to say, I don't know that it matters who writes the book. We will certainly pay, Donny Cates is not going to be getting a substandard, sub $60 page rate. He's going to be getting a good rate because he's a known edge team, and as he should. But, there's this whole middle tier that I think the company is sending a message of saying that group is fungible. Meaning, if I don't know, fill in the blank. I don't want to use the same old names over and over again, but Ben Percy. Okay, let's use Ben Percy. Ben Percy's a nice guy. He seems like he comes across well. If you're going to lower the rates, and by the way, the what I've heard is it's lowering the rate for entry, so this wouldn't impact people who are already at the company. But if you're lowering the rates, what you're kind of saying is, hey, this middle tier of writers, somebody like Ben Percy, yeah, we want him around. He's good. He turns in a script. We don't hate him. We like him. But we're viewing this entire category as just cheaper. We believe that the strength of our brand and the strength of our comics is what sells the day. And so, if somebody new is coming in, we don't really need to protect that. And if you're a Ben Percy, for example, who's been around there for a while, we're also sending a message that, hey, by establishing a new floor, the gap between what we're paying you and the floor has just increased. So it's going to be harder for a Ben Percy to go in and say, hey, I want more money. Because they're like, well, we're already paying you above floor. It's like, yeah, but you changed the floor and you lowered it. That's the kind of conversation that goes on. I'm not saying it is going on, but whenever this kind of thing happens, that's the inevitable result. I think that you need to pay more to get better talent. I think that if you pay more, I think that you're putting people in the position of you're at least putting the company in the position of attracting better people. I think if you do that, I think that it becomes a more attractive place to work. I think you get a higher quality of people coming in. I also think it becomes easier for you as a management, again, assuming that you've got good quality editorial, to say, hey, we're paying this rate. We understand we're higher than average in the market, and therefore we expect good work. They go hand in hand. You don't just hand out bonus checks to everybody. I think you say, look, we're demanding this caliber of writer, and we're going to pay we're going to pay appropriate to the caliber of writer that we're demanding. By paying low rates, I think it sends a message of we don't really care about the caliber of writer because we're paying a rate that is honestly less than what you would make if you were full-time at Starbucks. And by the way, Starbucks gives you insurance. So we're going to pay lower than that. And therefore, I think whether intentional or not, I think it sends a message of we don't really care. We don't really care about the quality of the people we get. And I think that's what's led us here. So I've pitched this idea in the past, or I've pitched this theory. Everybody's like, oh, so you're going to go out and you're going to hand a bunch of crummy writers a higher check? No. I'm going to say I want to go out into the industry. I want to go out and find writers who are currently doing, quality work elsewhere, maybe not in comics, or maybe really good people in the indies that you find. And I'm going to say, look, I'm going to pay you more. I'm going to demand high things, but I'm going to pay you appropriate to your worth. And let's go make some money together. That's what I'm going to do. I'm certainly not going to go to somebody who's phoning it in and dragging ass and go, oh yeah, let me just give you some more money and hope the behavior change. Now, for some, I do think if you paid more, people would get a little bit more serious. I think you'd get better quality. I think that's true of some. But I'm old enough to believe that, or old enough and have gone through this experience enough to know that if you have a bad worker and you give them a raise, hoping that that's going to incentivize them to do better, it usually doesn't. And at times it does. It's like, 1 out of 20. And it's questionable whether those are people you really want around anyway, because somebody who's going to hold you hostage for better quality completely based off of what you're paying them is arguably, that's a problem too. So I think it's better to just cut out the nonsense, pay higher, and demand better. And overall, you will see an improvement in your company. So what's depressing about all this is I feel like what I would do in the company is now the exact opposite of what the company is doing. I think the company is sending a message of we're willing to drive the rates down. Even if it only impacts entry-level people today, it's going to wind up impacting everyone over time. And I think this is pretty negative. Honestly, I think it's very negative for the company. I don't think this is a healthy decision. Again, regardless whether you like the talent in the company or not, this isn't healthy. I use this analogy. I'll use my favorite, Arby's. If I don't like Arby's, and I think the quality of their stuff is poor, and Arby's announces, hey, we're going to cut the salaries of all the people who work at Arby's. We're going to lower salaries. I'm not going to go from that and go, oh, well, great. Okay, well, now I want to go into Arby's for sure. Now that they've lowered the rates, that aligns with my expectation of the food. Now, in fairness, they would have to take the rates to 0 in order to align to my expectation of the food. But if they suddenly did that, my trust and faith in that company doesn't go up; it goes down. It says that place has a problem, and now they're going to pay their people less. I don't think that problem's getting solved. I think, by contrast, what's going to happen is you're going to have even lower quality people coming into the mix. Because anyone with any ambition, drive, and forward momentum, anyone who's any creativity is going to go do something else. Why would you put up with that? It was very classic on the part of Disney. Oh, I probably just spoiled the publisher. Anyway, Disney's been doing this for years with their licensing and with other places. They drive down the rates. Once they have something established, they start to trade it in for, hey, you want to work for the mouse, don't you? This is a major entertainment company. We're the biggest in the world. You should be paying us. They don't say that last bit, but in some cases they do. And they use this as an excuse to pay very low. And that works for a time if people can get on board with the dream of, yeah, but if I work here, it's going to be good for me long term. But I don't know if comics has that dream, because there's plenty of examples of people who have worked at Marvel for some time, and they're exiting their time at Marvel about the same place as when they came in. For every Jonathan Hickman who builds a name and gets some big work out of Marvel and can demand a higher rate and can do more things, for every Donny Cates that builds a reputation out of Marvel, There's a dozen more that come in, work for a year or two at pretty low dollar, and then disappear from the company having no profile raised at all. There's plenty of those people, far more than the success stories. So I just don't know how many people are going to jump onto that. But anyway, kind of, yeah, depressing news. For me, very depressing news. So we'll see where it all goes. Anyway, leave your thoughts below. Let me know your feelings on it. Please don't twist and warp my words, but I don't know why I say that. People want to do that are going to do that anyway. Thanks for listening.